Okay, I want to talk about this this meme that everyone's talking about with Trump in the video with the Obamas. And President Trump did one of his press gaggles on Air Force One last night. He was asked about it and he refused to apologize. They even asked if he would fire the staffer, and he said no. And no, President Trump should not apologize. I'm going to tell you why. This is the thing that just, you know, is so pathetic with the never Trumpers and the fake media. Everyone knows what happened with this video. Okay, everyone knows what happened with it. And I saw this video before I went on the air yesterday, and I didn't bring it up. I was waiting for one of the Democrats to call in and bring it up, but all the Democrats, all the never Trumpers and liberals that called me yesterday, they brought up everything but the meme. So I didn't share my thoughts. Everyone knows what happened with this video. There's two issues. How many times have you been watching on any social media platform and then the next video pops right up? It happens to me all the time. And the video that pops up has nothing to do with your watch history or anything, really. I mean, sometimes it's just really kind of random. So everyone knows that Obama video was another video, a separate video, and it popped up automatically after that one. Okay, everybody knows this. Everyone's been on social media and has had this happen to them many times. And so everyone knows that. The other thing everyone knows is that, yeah, okay, a staffer should have edited out the end, and they didn't. Okay, is it the end of the world? Is this really the end of the world? Of course not. Everyone knows what happened, and President Trump said he's not going to fire the staffer in that Air Force One gaggle with the press yesterday. And that's it. That's it. And, of course, they don't want to talk about the content of the video before that. And the reason that President Trump will not and should not apologize is this. Any time you apologize to the left, they don't accept that apology. They're not gracious. They accept it as a confession, and then they want more out of you. I give you an example that happened with me on the show this week. A couple days ago, day before yesterday, Doc from Texas called in, and he got really ticked off at me and dropped an F-bomb, right? Which I had to dump on the radio, but you guys could hear it online. That was Thursday. He called back Friday, yesterday. He said, Doc from Texas. I said, oh, did you call in to apologize for your language yesterday? And he said, yes, and he apologized. And what did I do? Apology accepted and moved on. But that's not how the never Trumpers are. That's not how Democrats are. That's not how liberals are. They're not gentlemen and gentle ladies. They take apologies as confessions, and then they start a whole avalanche of a snowball effect. And the fact that President Trump won't apologize, he shouldn't apologize. Okay, he should not apologize. He did nothing wrong. But the main reason is they're trying to get an apology out of him so they can get legs to the story. It's just so pathetic. Yesterday, the Dow hit 50,000, record high for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. We have the lowest crime rate in the United States in 125 years, since 1900, which is half the age of our country. And all the other great things are going on. They got the guy behind the Benghazi attack and all of that, and they're upset at this meme. They're not upset at Obama for getting all those guys killed in Benghazi. They're upset about some meme that somebody else put on online, which, by the way, President Trump deleted. But, that's the thing about being a conservative, right? When you're a conservative, they will grab onto any and everything that they could possibly grab onto, and they'll make a mountain out of a molehill. So, as conservatives, you've always got to be extra careful with everything that you say and everything that you do and everything that you post. But remember Joe Biden thought somebody should write a book about Obama because he was articulate, black, and he took a bath. Remember that? Oh, Biden said of Obama, he said he's good looking, he's articulate, and he's clean. Someone should write a book about him, he said. Right? You know, all these things. Free pass. Right now, white liberals, think about this, guys. Right now, white liberals, there's a new video I just saw today. White liberals in Minneapolis, these anti-ICE protesters, are going up to white liberal anti-ICE protesters are going up to black ICE officers and repeatedly calling them the N-word. It's been going on all week at the top of their lungs. No outrage about that. So, you know, they're gonna go after Trump on anything that he does. Okay, that's it. I mean, he destroys the Iranian nuclear operation. They attack him on that. He ends the war with Israel and Gaza. They attack him. The guy can do no right. So, you know, this is just them grabbing onto something like they always do. And, you know, it'll fade away soon. And then they'll have something else they'll go after him on. But that's just, yeah. And you got to give President Trump credit, too, don't you? You never Trumpers. He knew he had two press events yesterday. One at the White House on the way to the helicopter. And then he had a second one on Air Force One. He knew they were going to be all over him about it, and he still did both of them. Other presidents would hide out for 2 months. It wouldn't face the press. And the reason that he was able to do that is he's, you know, he's right, and he's got integrity. He's got guts, as opposed to these other presidents that are a bunch of cowards. If you're new, my name's Brian. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Make sure you subscribe. I was going to live stream outside today, but it's too cold. It's a little windy and it's a little cold, so the cold weather's already affecting my instrument. So I thought I would just sit here in the heat of my car. But it is going to be in the 70s today, but right now it's in the low 50s, so too cold to be outside in the wind. I can't risk getting sick, but I'm looking forward to some warm weather today. But that's it. I mean, you know, listen, you know, President Trump, for the rest of his life and beyond, they'll constantly be attacking him, the never-Trumpers and the Democrats. That's it. They'll never give the guy a break. He can do no right. Now, and it's you got to give President Trump credit too. They asked him if he was going to fire the staffer. He says no. I bet they won't make that mistake again. And President Trump told the complete 100% truth too. He said, "I just watched the beginning of the video. I didn't watch the video all the way through." You know, it's just so honest, because he's right. He's got nothing to hide. It's no big deal. The way that the Drudge Report and the media are reporting the story is that he posted a video of just that. I mean, and look what he's doing. You know, look how nasty they are to him. You know, Savannah Guthrie's mother, a big Trump hater, posted anti-Trump crap all over her Facebook and everything else. President Trump has Kash Patel and the whole federal government working on that case. Savannah Guthrie hates Trump. Her mother hates Trump. Posted anti-Trump stuff all over social media, and he's still out there trying to solve the case. You know, giving them the entire federal government resources to try to find Savannah Guthrie's missing mother. No credit for that. You know, and then we got a couple of Olympians that are trashing the country. You know, one guy's a skier. I'm going to watch. I like the Winter Olympics a lot. This one guy's a skier, and he's attacking our country and ICE. This one guy, he's a British American. He urinated in the snow, F-ICE, class act. That's just what you want in an Olympian. And here President Trump is trying to find Savannah Guthrie's mother, who hated him. Who's the stand-up honorable person? Donald Trump. That is correct. Yes, good morning, everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. Yeah, never apologize. You cannot apologize to the left. You don't hear me apologizing. I apologized once when I first started. I apologized to someone, and I didn't think I needed to apologize, but it was an interaction I had on the air with someone, and they were so upset by it. I mean, they just couldn't get over it. So I apologized to them just to make them feel better. I had done nothing wrong, right? They were practically in tears for days, so I apologized to them. And what did they do? They literally, I'm not kidding, they told me to go F myself, and then they wanted to come into the studio and have me apologize to them live on the air, and then apologize to them every hour of the show. And I thought, are you out of your freaking... I said, I said, I did nothing wrong. I'm apologizing because of your fragile ego, girly man, and, get over it. And you're telling me I couldn't believe... And I learned right then, you can never apologize to liberals. Yeah, liberals are sociopaths. That's correct. They are. Mm-hmm. Make sure you check out my most recent podcast here on YouTube. It's got Candace Owens in the thumbnail, guys. Make sure you check that out. Yeah, they go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That's it. Mm-hmm. Never apologize to the liberals. You can't do it. You can't do it. The liberals are psychotic, sociopath sickos. There's no getting around it. What a meme gate they're calling all this crap. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. But things are going so well in this country. The Dow Jones hitting 50,000 is a direct result of all of the President Trump economic policies. From the tariffs are doing great, to all the economic investment in the country. The Dow Jones hitting 50,000. What an amazing... The economy is booming. And it's going to continue to grow and boom under President Trump. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing what he's doing, and he did it in a year. They thought it would take 4 years, maybe more, to get to 50,000, and he did it in a year. Really less than a year, because it took him a while to get all his people in place to start his work. Socialist equals sociopath. Yeah. Socialist. These democratic socialists are really communist. I've noticed there's a lot of promotion of AOC. They're trying to elevate AOC. They're really planning on running AOC for president. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. What major legislation has she gotten passed? Does anyone know? All these years now that she's been in the House, what does she do other than gripe? And how many millions is she worth, Miss Democratic Socialist? The Democratic Socialism. That's good. That's the end of the Democrat Party. That's awesome. She's a great candidate for us. Dumb as a tulip. Tulip might be a little smarter, to tell you the truth. No. Oh, the heat feels good. I've got the seat heater on, and I've got the steering wheel heater on, and I've got the heat on. We'll be getting our warm weather back this week in Florida. I'm not good for the cold weather. But no, this second term is going so much better than even Trump's projections. It really is. The deportations are going full steam ahead. People talk about distractions. Not only are the deportations successful in Minnesota, Minneapolis in particular, and continue there, these anti-ICE lunatics in Minneapolis, they're distracting all the liberal eyes there while deportations are going on coast to coast. Thousands of truck drivers have been busted, deported, stopped, arrested, who are on the roads illegally, who don't speak English or are in the country illegally. I mean, the deportations are going on in all 50 states, probably the territories too. And all these people are looking at Minneapolis, where they've had a very successful operation. Tom Homan has everything under control in Minneapolis. Things could not be going better. And something big's about to happen with Iran again, no doubt about that. But Iran, Iran has been at war with the United States since 1979 when they stormed our embassy and took our hostages. And it's about time that this is over with Iran. Iran is responsible. I know liberals like to blame Israel for everything. That's just their anti-Semitism. But Iran is responsible for about 95% of the trouble in the Middle East, maybe even more. If it wasn't for Iran, we wouldn't have any problems in the Middle East. It'd be perfectly safe and peaceful. But they're always poking the bear, and they back all the Islamic terrorists that are always doing things like attacking Israel, or causing havoc here, or causing havoc there, and that regime's got to go. And if President Trump uses this aircraft carrier fleet group to take out what's left of the Iranian regime, so be it. I mean, this is just, I'm tired of hearing about Iran all the time. How many people are dead because of everything Iran's done? And since we're in the Olympics now, the Winter Olympics, ever since Munich, right? I know that was before the Islamic Revolution, but that's when all this crap really, really began. Yeah, we're having great weather today. It's going to warm. It's going to be 77, I think, I saw today. And that's because the president's in town at Mar-a-Lago. So the Florida sunshine wants to make sure the president has a good weekend. So it's going to be warm today. Although now it's like 53, 54. But maybe I'll get out the MAGA scooter today. Yes, welcome. Make sure you guys subscribe who are new to my channel. This is most definitely where MAGA comes to talk. What do you think, this, the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping, Savannah Guthrie's mother. Remember, she's in Arizona, one of these border states. Which do you think is responsible for her? We'll call it a disappearance at this point. Who's the most likely suspect? The son-in-law or an illegal? What would you guys think? Who is your most likely suspect? The son-in-law or an illegal? What do you think? I saw yesterday the law enforcement took her car out of the garage. It had a big dent in it. And the front, I think was it the front right bumper and fender? The son-in-law looks pretty creepy, doesn't he? Yeah, he does. He looks really, really creepy. What would be the point? I don't know. They don't have Savannah Guthrie money, so they could be having money problems. Who knows? Yes, son-in-law or an illegal. Keep in mind where she's at. And she's liberal. But they said that she took an Uber. I would not want my mother to take an Uber alone. My daughter had an incident in an Uber a year or two ago, and I've never let her take an Uber alone ever since. An Uber driver did something really, really creepy. And we probably should have called the police. But I wasn't home when it happened, and I didn't know about it till after the fact. But it was Uber drivers can be kind of creepy. Most people say son-in-law. Yeah, I mean he's the lead suspect. I know that I haven't seen the son-in-law and the sister out. The sister came out with that video that Savannah Guthrie made the other day. Then Savannah Guthrie's brother made a video, but the sister's been, kind of on the side. No Americans are losers. We're number one. But everyone's looking at the son-in-law. Well, usually when they're in most cases of a disappearance or murder, it's almost always someone the person knew. right? It's almost always someone that the person knew, very close to them. Very few people are abducted and killed by complete strangers. So depends on the financial situation of them. If they find out they're in massive debt. But Ashley Banfield's sticking by her story. She was on with Megyn Kelly yesterday. I didn't see the interview, but she's sticking by her story. We are not number one in prison inmates. That's not true. Liberal lies. But if you do crime, you do go to prison, hopefully. Unless you're in New York City, then they let you out without bail. But what country are you in that you think is better than the United States? I really would like to beat Canada. And, this will sound ridiculous. I would like to, in the Olympics, I'd like to beat Canada in, of course, hockey, but curling. Curling's a big sport that they have an advantage of in Canada. I can't even believe it's an Olympic sport, but I'd love to beat them in curling, just to stick it to them. But Canada has an advantage on us in the Olympics, but we beat the Russians in the past. Ireland, Scotland, and Australia are better than the United States. Are you kidding me? If Ireland, Scotland, and Australia, all three of them, right now just stopped existing, how long would it be before the rest of the world even noticed? And then when they did, what difference would it make? If the United States evaporated today, the entire global economy would collapse. And there would be a global war because we keep stability around. That's it. The whole world would collapse without the United States. I know liberals have this fantasy of a world without America, but that would be a disaster for the world. It'd take 12 years before people noticed. Yeah, exactly. I've got nothing against Scotland, Ireland, or Australia. Good countries, good people, but the United States is number one in every category that's important. We are the most powerful country in the world militarily by far. I mean, this Maduro raid showed that we're about 35, maybe even 40 years ahead of the rest of the world militarily when it comes to technology. Our technology is 22nd century technology. Our military technology is far more advanced than anyone in the world realized. We're the largest economy in the world. And we're the richest country in the world. And the rest of the world depends on us. That is a fact. Oh, Rosie would have to come back? Oh, my goodness. No, Ireland can keep Rosie. Rosie, she has some real daddy issues with Trump. She really does. I mean, she is dealing with some severe trauma in her life that whatever man did whatever he did that messed her up so bad, Trump just triggers that in her. Rosie. And she's such a narcissist that she makes everything about her. We all have presidents we don't like. You think I liked Obama? You think I liked having Biden? No, but you'd write it out. We have elections, every 4 years. You get another chance to get your guy in. That's the way it works. All right? So, you just have to bide your time. 8 years of Obama, that sucked. He was a terrible president. Yeah, make sure you subscribe, guys, if you are new to the channel. And also, guys, if you haven't, make sure you check out my most recent podcast episode. It's the video before this. It has Candace Owens in the thumbnail. And those of you that are Patreon supporters, I uploaded the commercial-free edition of the podcast early this morning for you guys. So check that out if you're a Patreon supporter. Yeah, welcome. Welcome, Itchy. Where you been? Oh, man. I tell you, what an exciting time. I'm excited. Next month is our MAGA cruise. Some people from YouTube will be on the MAGA cruise. We have some of the YouTube watchers on the MAGA cruise. I'm very excited about it. This is going to be a great one. We have our MAGA cruise every year. This is the 10th one. I can't believe it. It would have been the 11th or 12th if it wasn't for all the shutdowns and everything. But this is the, I'm not sure if it would be the 11th or 12th because we did the first one in 2018. No, actually, 16 or 15. Yeah. 16 or 15. So this would either be in the 11th or 12th, probably the 12th if it wasn't for the shutdowns. But 10's a good number. It is a great time to be alive. Every day is a good day to be alive. When it warms up in Florida, it'll be better. I do not like this, I don't like this cold weather. I mean, it's compared to you guys around the country, it's not that cold in Florida, right? It got into the 30s a couple times in the last week. Right now it's 54, it tells me here on the dashboard. But we don't live in the tropics for weather below, 70 degrees. It's going to be 77 today, so I'm excited. I'll get the MAGA scooter out and go for a ride. The president's in town. I'm not sure where I'm going to go, but I'm going to go somewhere. I haven't had the MAGA scooter out because it's been so darn cold. Maybe I'll make a video for my other channel, do a vlog today with the MAGA scooter. Everyone should have a MAGA scooter. But so many, think about it. How much has President Trump done in this first year of his second term? He's done more in the first year of his second term than most two-term presidents do in 8 years. One of the things I'm really looking forward to is the fall of the communist regime in Cuba. That is one that would be just incredible. Cuba is in such poverty. Anytime you see anything in Cuba that looks good in Havana, that's only like one small section of it. If you look at videos that people make that visit Cuba and go outside of that couple little areas they always show with all the cars from the 50s, it is so impoverished. In Havana, which is the nicest place of all in Cuba, it will be, if Cuba falls, one of our upcoming MAGA cruises will be there. And I've flown over Cuba a bunch of times, kind of low. And on a lot of our MAGA cruises, depending on where we're going, we sail along Cuba. People don't realize how big Cuba is. It is so freaking big. I don't know how many square miles it is compared to different states, but it is massive. But the thing about Cuba, I've flown over Cuba many times during the day and get a good, on days with no clouds, a good view. And when our cruise ships have sailed around Cuba, it goes on forever. And what you don't see is any development. It's because communism, this communism that they're trying to bring here into this country, they brought it to Cuba, 60 years ago, over 60 years ago, and there's no development there. It's empty. You fly over Cuba, there's nothing. It's just, it's beautiful and green, but there's no buildings, nothing. And when you sail along the coast, and I've been all around Cuba by ship, you rarely see a building. And the Cuban people are going to be so rich because the developers are going to move in there and rebuild that whole country, and it's going to be the biggest tourist stop in the Caribbean. It'll probably put the Bahamas out of business and maybe even Puerto Rico out of business when they get Cuba fully opened. And Cuba could fall at any time. We've cut off the oil from Venezuela, and some countries have been smuggling oil in, but President Trump's putting a stop to that. There was a big story a couple days ago. There was a Russian military cargo jet landed in Havana. Did you guys see this? And that same military aircraft landed in Venezuela before we got Maduro. So what was on that plane when it came in and what was on it when it left, we don't know. But it looks to me like Cuba could. You could wake up any morning, turn on the news, and find out the communist regime has collapsed in Cuba. If there are people, there's no way they have enough oil to keep the lights on. They've never had 24-hour electricity in Cuba. Not since Castro took over and destroyed the place. But however many hours a day they had electricity, that's been cut back. They don't have enough fuel. So, if the people would rise up like they've done in Iran, that would be it for Cuba. And I'm sure Radcliffe has, he's our CIA director. I'm sure the CIA is very embedded in Cuba, and they're trying to start a revolution down there, which would be a good thing. I can't. I hope it happens and it gets developed quick, because I'd love to go to Cuba. But we can't go there until the communists are out. And I don't know how many Miami Cubans are going to go back for more than a visit. They've been here so long. I mean, how many Venezuelans want to go back to Venezuela? Probably more than Cubans, because they haven't been here as long, but life's good in America. I mean, what President Trump is doing in Cuba, what he did in Venezuela, it changes everything, right? I mean, think about it. We've been now 9 or 10 months without a single illegal crossing the southern border. I was going to show this on the last podcast, but I just didn't get to it. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Benny Johnson, in the last week, has done about 10 or 11 videos on Epstein. In the last 7-8 days, he's done about 10 or 11, at least, videos on Jeffrey Epstein. Why is Benny Johnson doing so many videos on Epstein? Is it just for views? I don't understand. A lot. I really don't understand. Why is he doing that? Now, this week, I know it sounds kind of crazy because so much is going on, but it is kind of a slow news week because the Savannah Guthrie mother kidnapping story is hijacking so much of the media attention. That's basically all they're doing, it seems, most of the day now. But I can't figure out why he's doing that. I don't understand. There's really nothing new to discuss. It's almost like and maybe I'm wrong, but I just kind of see it as a fallback on what's kind of is a low. There's not this week. There's not like one big story, right? Other than the Savannah Guthrie mother kidnapping story, right? There's not like a big controversial story like these ICE people attacking ICE agents and getting shot and things like that. There's nothing big like that. So my guess is it's kind of a slow. There's a lot of news stories out there, but there's not like a big political story going on this week, and that's just a fallback for content. That's my take on it. I mean, I just don't. I don't see anything to talk about with it. What I told this to a caller the other day who called me. A guy called me. One of these liberals, they love to talk about Epstein. And I told a caller the other day. I said, he said to me, he had the same. They got the same talking about point. Don't you care about the victims? This is about the victims. Yeah, really, right? Like all these trolls care about the Epstein victims, right? The victims are grown women now, and they've all connected. At least a lot of them have connected together. Between them, they have identified who a lot of the perpetrators are. So why don't they let us know who victimized them? Why do they not go to Kash Patel, go to the FBI or their local police departments and make criminal complaints? You know, Bill Cosby went to prison with allegations that were 50 years old without any evidence. So these girls, they're all grown women now. They may not know who all the perpetrators were, but they know who a lot of them are. And because there's so many of them, even though there might not be physical evidence, they've got a lot of different eyewitness evidence, and you could show where these guys were and where they weren't at this particular time. So at this point, the files are useless. They're so, ridiculous. But the victims, it's on them at this point. Do you guys agree with that? Yes or no? That between them, just the ones that were at that press conference with Marjorie Trader Greene a few months ago, they've got to be able to come up with a dozen or so perpetrators. And between them, they have enough eyewitness testimony, they could put together a timeline, and those guys would, it would show that they were where they said they were when they were victimized by them. So, of course we care about the victims, but the files are useless. They've been so muddied and, they're meaningless. They're no good as evidence anymore. But the victims could bring at least some of these guys to justice, and I'd be very happy to. I don't care who it is. I'd like to see these guys brought to justice. And if you remember at that press conference, the victims, the one Marjorie Trader Greene was at, the reporters, it was a reporter from, it was either CNN or NBC News, asked them if President Trump if they had seen him or doing anything inappropriate. They said no. The victims cleared President Trump. But that's, and I wish they would do that, because I don't want guys like that out there in society, to stop them. Get together, go to the FBI. Kash Patel would gladly meet with them and take their statements and investigate. He would gladly do it. So I see at this point, there's no way to bring anyone to justice without the victims doing it. It's on them at this point. And that's not insensitive. That's just the truth. You got to do it. I saw an interview a week or so ago with Elizabeth Smart. I guess there's a new documentary with her. And she was victimized in the worst way. I mean, and she made sure that guy was brought to justice. And she's done great advocacy work. She's kind of almost like a John Walsh type figure. She's done a lot of great work to help other people not be victimized or bring perpetrators to justice. And that's what the Epstein victims could do. I don't know how many of them were at that press conference, but there were a lot. There were about a dozen, right? So say between them, they could come up with just 6 perpetrators. They would put together names and a timeline, and those perpetrators, the evidence would show where they were. People like that fly all the time, so there's all kinds of records. They could easily nail guys together if they got together and put that list. But for some reason, they don't want to do it. Why? I don't know. It's not pointless. People get arrested all the time on old crimes. I just saw a story this morning of a guy who got away with killing someone for 26 years, and the police just finally caught up to him. It's never too late. It is never too late for the worst of the worst crimes. And People all the time get caught, they get busted, they get arrested for crimes that are much older than what these victims suffered through. So no, they could do it. You're right here, Too Funny. The only thing about Too Funny I would say is you're not very funny to call yourself Too Funny. Are you so funny that you're not funny? I don't know. But anyway, I don't know why. What I started with this is, why has Benny Johnson done like 10 videos this week on Epstein? Is it because it's a slow news week, and it's a way to get a lot of views on a slow news week because there hasn't been one big controversy? That would be my guess. All right. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of anything else. You know, this kidnapping story might start to get interesting this week because they've impounded the sister and son-in-law's car, the sheriff, and then yesterday they took Savannah Guthrie's mother's car out of the garage that was all banged up. But, you know, she's an old lady. She could have crashed into something. Old people bump in the fire hydrants and things all the time. But they've impounded 2 cars, and they yesterday, I don't know if it was the FBI or the sheriff, but one of them found a camera on the roof that the kidnappers missed, and they took that camera from the roof. So hopefully that has some info in it. So we'll see. There might be some news value out of that, but there's just not, you know, a story. To have a story, you know, to have a news story that has legs to it, there has to be a hook. You know, it's like storytelling. News is a story. There has to be a mystery, a drama, a hook, a controversy. And there's not enough about that kidnapping right now. There's no hook for the story to go. So it doesn't really leave you much to talk about. It was like, I remember I was on the air when that condo collapsed in Miami. This is a perfect example of it. And I remember somebody called me on the air, why aren't you talking about this building collapse in Miami? And I said, well, it just happened this morning. We know nothing about it. What do you say other than it happened and it was terrible? You don't know anything yet. And that's kind of the same with this kidnapping story. There's no hook. We don't know enough yet to have really a news angle. Everything that's been discussed is almost all a rehash of the same thing for the last 5 days. Although we do have the new thing with the car and the camera that they got yesterday from the house, but we have no information. So that doesn't leave you with a controversy, right? You know, like with the Preddy thing or the Renee Good. There was there was something to talk about there because Preddy had a gun, you know, and there were videos from different angles. So we had something to analyze. We had something to discuss. With this, there's not much to discuss about it. That's how the news, you know, a news story, it's the news, and sad to say, is storytelling, right? You know, and storytelling is usually like in 3 parts, right? The one they always teach you about is Jack and Jill went up the hill. They went up the hill, right? Jack fell down, and then Jill came tumbling down. Jack and Jill went after him. That's it. Or you could throw in the pail of water, then he fell down. You know what I mean? You got to have an arc. And in news, we call it a hook. There's got to be a hook. You know, like an example, what I was talking about at the beginning was the Trump not apologizing for this meme. Okay, so an incident happened. A Trump aide posted this meme, and they didn't edit out the end from the next video that popped up on the news feed. Okay, so President Trump's going to talk to the press. You know they're going to ask him, what's his answer going to be? Is he going to apologize? Is he not going to apologize? Is he going to defend it? Is he going to fire the aide that posted the video without editing out the end? There's something to say there. There's something to discuss. There's a hook. There's an angle. There's there's a controversy. You got to have, you got to have that in these things, or at least a mystery, right? It's kind of a mystery, and the kidnapping story isn't giving the media that now, even though they're one of the reasons they're hijacking the media cycle with it is because it's a story about somebody in the media, Savannah Guthrie. So the media loves stories about them. But man, what I feel for Savannah Guthrie. Will she ever be able to return to the Today Show? Regardless of what happens, hopefully they find her mother alive. But will Savannah Guthrie be able to go back to the Today Show? Because no matter what happens with her mother, if they find her alive, oh man, that'd be amazing. But the trauma that her mother would be going through, or will it, because the Today Show is a happy show about happy things. Will she ever be able to do that? Or is she going to become like an investigative crime reporter moving forward with NBC? Yeah, I'm serious about that. I mean, how can Savannah Guthrie go back to talking about Valentine's Day gifts or what to feed your family? Like the big holiday coming up next is Mother's Day. What to get mom for Mother's Day? How's she going to do all that feel-good type of content on the Today Show moving forward, regardless of what happens with her mother? I think it would be very difficult for her emotionally, and in like a crime correspondent of sorts for NBC, and that might work out better for her. Tell you the truth. I mean, how is she going to be able to host the Macy's Thanksgiving parade next year after this? No matter what happens, it's. I feel so bad. Could you? I could not imagine what she's going through. I'd be physically ill. If that was my mother missing, I'd be physically ill. It's a strange thing when your parents get older, because my parents got got married when they were young. When my dad came back from Vietnam, my parents got married. My dad was 20, my mom was 19, or 18, and my mom's only 19 years older than me. So it's kind of, my daughter, I am 28 years older than my daughter, so there's a bigger age difference. And, so I can remember my mom when she was in her 20s, and now my mom's in her 70s and getting to that retirement. She's retired, fully retired. She's a widow, and my stepfather died over a decade ago. And, I could see where, like in the last year, I could see where the age is really starting to kick in, right? Memory and just everything else. But one thing I've learned, though, is retirement's a bad idea. I know Ben Shapiro, he said no one should ever retire. No, but when you're retired and you're not using your brain as much, it has the aging of my mother, right? It's, and I know everybody goes through this. Some of you probably have already been through this, and it's difficult sometimes, because I can remember knowing when my mother was 25. I can remember knowing my mom was 25 years old. Now, at the time, I was like 5 or 6, and I thought 25 was old. But I can remember her knowing her age at being 25. And now she's in her mid-70s, and I'm starting to see the little cognitive issues and, and things like this. I don't think she should be driving, but she still drives, And, and it's just, it's tough. So, and that's obviously where Savannah Guthrie is with her mother, because I'm probably about the same age as Savannah Guthrie, and her mother, I'm not sure how old is her mother. Her mother's older than my mom. But when your parents get to that age, it's I don't know, maybe it's like one of those denial things you go through, like you don't want to admit that your parents are that old or having those problems. And I just could not imagine what it would be like to have your elderly parent missing like this with the blood all over the house and everything else. It'd be bad enough if they just had like Alzheimer's and they got in their car and were lost somewhere and you've got one of those silver alert going on. That's bad enough. But when you see the crime scene and everything else, my God, I mean, that is, I don't know how I could function. And when Savannah Guthrie made that video the other day, she didn't have the makeup on, she was there. I mean, you wouldn't recognize her if you saw her out, would you? I mean, and she's just devastated, as anyone should be and would be in a normal situation. But I could not imagine what she's going through. It's just awful. So you look at this trauma. I don't see how she could ever return to the Today Show. Not with that type of programming. I just don't see it. She obviously, when it's resolved, if they find the mother alive, she'll return and be happy and all that stuff. Long term, I don't see how it's possible. But she could turn this into a mission like John Walsh did after the kidnapping and murder of his son, Adam Walsh. And seniors living alone is bad news. My mother does not live alone, which is good. But seniors living alone is not too safe, especially cameras that don't record and all of this. But we don't necessarily know that's true. That could be a misdirection. They could very well have recordings of cameras, and they just want the bad guys to think they got off scot-free while they're trying to do some identification. They have a lot more information than they're letting us know about, even though that sheriff out there in Arizona is a complete moron. But Savannah Guthrie, regardless of how this turns out, she could do a lot of great work making the lives of seniors safer. I mean, think about the tragedy of Adam Walsh. If you're my age, Adam Walsh was one of the major, Generation X is my generation. The Adam Walsh kidnapping and murder was a life-altering thing for people of my generation. And John Walsh, it's impossible to put a number on how many lives have been saved because of John Walsh, because John Walsh took that tragedy with his son and put together the entire system we have today for missing children. And so many children, there's no way to put a number on it, have not gone missing because of John. So Savannah Guthrie could do something similar to that for seniors. Senior citizens really should not be living alone. They shouldn't be living alone. They need to be under some type of supervision. And that supervision may be being in a gated community with cameras everywhere. Like this, I give an example of something that's crazy. This is crazy. Savannah Guthrie's mother, there's no lights on that street. And that's by design, because this is how liberal they are. They don't want to have light pollution. They want to reduce light pollution. So there's no lights. I have lights and cameras all over my place, man. It's like, crazy. And so do my neighbors. You want to have light pollution. Some of the lights, a lot of people in the neighborhood have those motion detectors, so they go up, the lights turn on if there's motion. To be so liberal that you're opposed to light pollution, so you're a senior citizen, wealthy, living in a house filled with fancy things, you're living alone, and there's no lights in your neighborhood because of light pollution. It's another example. Light pollution is some liberal creation. Liberals, and their wackadoodle ideas result in so many tragedies, so many deaths, right? They just do. Who would live on a street alone that didn't allow streetlights? So that's one of the reasons if people have cameras on their houses on that street, they may not be able to see any details because there's no light. Exactly. The electric tank is perfect example. Renee Good and Preddy in Minneapolis. Liberalism got those guys killed. Liberalism puts people in very dangerous situations all the time and gets people killed all the time. You see it time and time again. Exactly. You know, I mean, I would, my mother, she doesn't live alone, and she's got lights all over the joint, you know, and so do our neighbors. That's what you do. You don't have your elderly mother living in a fancy house with expensive things on a street where they're dedicated to light pollution and don't have lights. I mean, I heard that yesterday. I'm like, how liberal can you be? Now I know they're in Arizona. They want to see the stars. The lights should at least come on when there's movement. Well, what the lights would do is criminals don't like lights. Bad guys don't like lights. They don't want to be seen. So that's one thing. Lights are a deterrent. And whoever this was, they went around the house looking for the cameras for a while. So, you know, the lights also outside on the street, other people's door cameras you might be able to get a license plate or at least a good idea on a vehicle. There's a group of runners who meet here, and there's these runners groups all over town. They're running around the parking lot like it's a track. Yeah, they've turned the parking lot into a track. I don't know. I don't see the point of that. You know, I saw Jesse Ventura the other day. I showed it on the show. He looked like hell, and he was a guy that spent his life in the gym. So I don't know if being a gym rat. I mean, I saw Schwarzenegger a while back out in L.A. He could hardly walk. He could hardly get into his car. He spent his life in the gym. So I'm not so convinced that all this exercise and working out that I see people doing is good when you're older, because I see all these workout fanatics. Look at Susan Powder. You know, you see all these workout fanatics, and they get older, and they're in a lot of pain. Hmm. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe. This is where MAGA comes to talk. If you missed the beginning, go back and watch. I talked about the Trump apology with the Obama meme video. So you'll see me talk about that in the beginning. You won't want to miss